Hey there guys, PC Guy here, and it's been a while since I did one of these. Everyone is always, especially PC enthusiasts and gamers, whenever something new comes out, we're always eager to upgrade, get something new. But the question is always, is it the best time to upgrade, or should we wait until something else better is around the corner? Now I apologize a bit for the background noise, I can't really help it, to be quite honest. So hope it is not too bad, but it's the only time frame that I have today to record it, so you're gonna have to deal with it. Any case, a lot of people like to have the best of the best, and well, not only if you are buying new from the latest generation, but sometimes when something new and better comes along, the prices on the used market go down, there's more offer on the used market from people that are replacing, so sometimes it can be better to wait even if you are not waiting for new stuff. So similarly, if a new technology is coming up, like let's say for example DDR5 for RAM, if it's just around the corner and if your PC is not about to die, then sometimes it's worth waiting a few months. Not the case with RAM, spoiler alert. In any case, like I just said, if your PC is about to die, you don't have much of a choice. But if you are just upgrading for the sake of better performance and your PC still works, then sometimes it's worth to wait. I will break down part by part. Quick mention about pre-builds. I don't follow the pre-build market very thoroughly, I must admit. But right now, the latest generation, the current generation, should have hit in full force on the pre-build market. And if you do buy pre-built, which I personally don't really advise you to, they usually are more pricey. They do have the advantage of the warranties and such. But if you are buying pre-built, then you are pretty safe to assume that you can get every currently available part on the pre-built. Now on a part-by-part basis, starting with the heavy hitters, let's say, like CPUs, GPUs, motherboards, etc. So let's start with the CPUs. Is it a good time to upgrade your CPU, or should you wait until next generation of something comes along? Now this is a multifaceted question. It kind of depends what you're using for. For the rest of this video, I'm going to be assuming that you are going to be using your PC mostly for daily tasks, browsing around obviously, as well as some gaming, more or less intensive, doesn't really matter, and perhaps, just perhaps, some very light content creation, not on a professional level, mind you, just like me, for example, videos for YouTube, that sort of thing, just amateur stuff. You have basically a choice of Intel and AMD. Both are valid choices at this point. I tend to be more partial for AMD because they do offer better performance at the same price, or same performance at a less of a price, especially in the current generation. If you insist on going Intel, you should know that their current family of CPUs is probably going to be replaced quite soon. We're expecting to hear something about the next generation end of March, start of April. Doesn't mean it will release then, but we'll probably hear more about it at that point. As far as AMD goes, the next generation Zen 3 is going to be released and available still this year. We don't know exactly how late, but it's also going to be available this year, so depends how much of a rush you are with your processors. All in all, if you are not willing to wait until probably the end of the year for Zen 3, you should at least wait until March, April, so you can maybe hear a little bit about Intel's offerings. It's still very up in the air if they're going to beat AMD or not, but worst case scenario, you might probably get some good pricing, good competition, maybe some price drops on Ryzen if Intel's is up to par, and if not, then if you do end up going with Intel, you will at least get hyper-threading on all your processors. If you're going on the used market, like I said, you might be able to fetch some last generation Intel, or current generation right now, for a better price than you would otherwise, because, well, the newer generation will be out. And in the best case scenario, Intel CPUs might beat AMD, and you might end up going with the better choice. In any case, you don't lose a whole lot by waiting, especially considering it's just a month or two of wait. And then if you are not convinced by a new generation and don't want to wait for AMD, then you have the choices on the table and you can pick whatever you want. But yeah, I definitely advise waiting a month or two to hear some news. Choosing between Intel and AMD for the CPU does have impact on the motherboard that you need, obviously. and the motherboards have impact on the CPU that you choose similarly. So you should know that if you go Intel, you will need a different motherboard than the current generation. The current socket is going to be replaced for the 10th gen, so you will need a new motherboard for that, and it's quite likely that on the generation after that it might well be replaced again. No guarantees there, but that's Intel's track record, and knowing what we know about them probably wanting to include PCIe Gen 4, perhaps DDR5 support if it is that far along, which we do not know, then maybe a new socket will also come, so you are a bit limited in terms of forward compatibility. AMD does have the advantage that their AM4 socket from right now supports CPUs from 2 generations ago, and will also support CPUs from the next Zen 3 generation that should be coming at the end of the year. So you have some leeway going forward. If you buy a Zen 2 CPU right now and you get an X570 board, for example, and you want to upgrade in, let's say, 2 years with Zen 3's flagship, then you will be able to just plop it in your motherboard and save some costs. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. PCIe Gen 4 is not really a selling point right now unless you're a professional that needs large file transfers, which is not the crowd I'm addressing in this video, to be quite honest. Like I said, I'm going at mostly gamer / everyday user / light content producing, so PCIe Gen 4 is not really an issue there, and the motherboards are more expensive than they were in the past. So if you do go AMD, consider going with an X470 board, for example, or B450. So yeah, you save some costs there, you lose on PCIe Gen 4, but you will still be forward compatible. I would advise you to get one with good VRM, so don't cheapen out on the motherboard, get a bit of a better one to be able to handle the CPU requirements of the current generation and the generation after that if you choose to upgrade. So that covers CPUs and motherboards, but how about GPUs or graphics cards? On that front, we are kind of also in a similar situation, however, not as much as with the CPUs. While news on the CPU front are probably coming in March, April, not so much is known from, for example, AMD on the GPU side. From Nvidia, we are also expecting some announcements in March. News from AMD are scarce. Rumors of the so-called big Navi are abundant, to say the least, but nothing really concrete other than, well, rumors and unconfirmed information. So I would wait until the 5th of March at GTC, where we might hear more from Nvidia on their next generation, but it does not seem like it is just around the corner either. You will probably have to wait until later in the year for those graphics cards to land. Same thing for AMD with their RDNA 2 architecture. I don't expect them to hit very soon, probably later in the year as well. So if you are on the market for a graphics card, now might well be a decent time to buy, especially if you are not going for the best of the best, latest generation kind of thing. Then just go with what is currently out. And yeah, there is good choices at every price point from one company or another, unless you want to really go high-end, where the only choice really is Nvidia. On things like power supplies, there's not really much to say. It is a staple that is barely worth mentioning because nothing much really has changed. There's all the bells and whistles that lately come on the higher-end graphics cards, like RGB, passive cooling where the fan doesn't need to spin unless it's really under load, amperage meter to see how much your PC is actually using in terms of power. But other than that, in terms of actual functionality, not really much has changed. The only thing I always say is try to go for a modular one if your budget so allows, because it saves you a lot of hassle in terms of cable management and building your PC and having wires flopping around everywhere. But other than that, nothing much has to be said. Just make sure you go for a good brand, so it will probably last you for a good 3-4 builds probably before you want to replace it. RAM and SSDs are both kind of sharing a similar point because of their similar manufacturing process that impacts each other and makes the prices kind of fluctuate together, but we'll still address them one at a time. Let's start off with RAM, or, well, RAM memory, the RAM sticks, DIMMs, whatever you want to call it, they were at an all-time high a couple of months back, but they have since normalized. End of last year, the prices have crashed, and well, PC Part Picker actually has a pretty nice graph for us to take a look at that. I chose DDR4 3200 for our comparison. They have graphs for basically a bunch of speeds and sizes, but we are comparing right now because it's the most common these days for people to get. That is kind of the sweet spot in terms of performance and price. DDR4 3200, 2x8 GB sticks. You could get them on September 2018 for close to $200, and they have bottomed out in December, barely, actually under 100, so that's half the price. It seems like the bottom out spot is kind of past, with the prices recovering a bit now January, February, but still barely above the 100. So for RAM, I would definitely tell you, if you are looking to get some RAM sticks for a PC, either upgrading or expanding or a brand new build, now is definitely a good time to grab RAM sticks, and I don't think they will get much cheaper in the near future, and I'll touch on that in a second while I talk about SSDs. As you probably know by now, SSDs come in SATA format and M.2. I'll start with the M.2, and this is one of the more popular ones out there, the Samsung 860 EVO. I picked 500 GB just for an example, and at the bottom out here, if you look at the prices, they have also been steadily going down. The green line is the minimum price, so the cheapest one of all the stores tracked, and as well, similarly to the RAM, it bottomed out in November, December, and now is rising a little bit, which is kind of what we were expecting. For the M.2 format, they have also been getting cheaper and cheaper over the years. They started out at 200 and something, had a little peak here, but again, they also bottomed out in December and have since then recovered. Solid state storage has historically been dropping in price over the years, so it's definitely cheaper than it ever was. So I would recommend to grab one now if you are looking to expand your storage, especially given the volatility of the market. The manufacturing process between RAM and SSDs or flash memory is similar. They are often done at the same fabrication plants, so the capacity is kind of limited between the two. Plus, we are getting the next generation consoles at the end of the year, which will both use SSDs and they will be using DDR4. So the demand is going to go up. The supply probably not going to increase massively, at least not as much as the demand. And there's also more demand these days from smartphones, smart TVs, all that sort of thing. So yeah, I would definitely say that it is a good time to invest on some solid state storage, either M.2 or SSDs, depending on what you are looking at. For hard drives, in terms of storage, there is talk of, in the future, having bigger hard drives. However, I don't expect that to hit just in the next 2 months either. So if you need space, just get a hard drive. The prices are similar, cheaper than they've ever been in terms of price per gigabyte or terabyte of storage. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with grabbing a hard drive right now if you do need one. And I do advise you to get one for kind of your games archives or storing movies in there. Just, you know, the cold storage and don't often use. That pretty much covers the core parts of a PC. There's a few other things worth taking a look at. Cases, there's not much to say. There's always going to be the budget cases at $20 to $50, and there's always going to be the higher end cases at $200+. So yeah, the thing is, at the higher end, things do develop over time quite a bit. Quality of life improvements, better designs, better airflow, better water cooling support, lots of cool stuff like having 2 systems in one chassis. So there. But then again, it's not really worth waiting for it because you never really know what's around the corner. It doesn't follow a steady release cycle. You could wait and wait and wait and nothing comes up, and then you finally buy something and the next day something awesome launches. So not worth waiting there either, and the prices are not really going to change much other than older cases becoming cheaper and newer cases coming out expensive. So not much worth saying there. In terms of cooling, fans, same story. There's always new designs coming up. new technologies, especially in the LED department, which has been booming the past few years. There's new types of LED diffusers, new types of LEDs, smaller LEDs, more LEDs per fan, fans in different LEDs in different spots on the fan, you name it. And there's always more coming out. So I would just say, if you like something, just buy it. And yeah, it can get expensive if you go for all the bells and whistles and all the pretty lights. But in the end, you know what your budget is. If you're limited, then if you're on a limited budget, don't get tempted by that. If you have the money to spare, then just get whatever looks good to you. And well, I would look at some reviews in terms of noise and performance, but yeah, that's about it. Brief mention to water cooling. Custom loops have become more and more common, I suppose. They're still pretty expensive, but that's a very enthusiast niche thing. In terms of AIO coolers, they've become more and more popular lately, and their price has also dropped. It's hard for me to say if they're going to drop further or not, considering it's a relatively recent addition to the PC portfolio, but they have certainly gotten cheaper than they were when they first started appearing. So yeah, if you do like that aesthetic and you like to go into water cooling with some baby steps, then by all means go. But keep in mind, you can get a high quality air cooling system for a lot cheaper than you can get an air cooler. It's a lot less of a headache, less points of failure, and well, it will be cheaper and just as effective. But in the end, it's up to you and depends on the budget that you get. The only last piece that I want to touch on is the monitor. I'm not going to go into headsets and mice and keyboard. Quick note on mice actually, wireless charging for wireless mice is becoming also a bit more commonplace, more models showing up, and that's a technology that I definitely would like to see developed in the future to be more and more efficient. For the monitor itself, a trend that has been increasing in the past couple of months/years is for bigger resolutions like 1440p 4K to becoming more and more accessible. The displays are becoming cheaper and better quality as well. And similarly, technologies like IPS, which provide usually better color accuracy, better image quality, they are overcoming some of their limitations, like the refresh times that were not as good as other types of displays, and they are also becoming cheaper in comparison to what they were. So you are getting to see better monitors out there, both in terms of better resolution, better refresh rate, and also better LCD technology. So hard to say how far the prices will drop, but they have been dropping in the past couple of years. So compared to a few months back, it's definitely a good time to be on the lookout for some displays. But who's to say that if you don't wait another few months, something better will come along? It's difficult to tell how some of these markets will develop because they don't follow a strict linear release cycle like CPUs and GPUs do. Okay, that's kind of my verdict in terms of should you buy something or upgrade now. In terms of buying a whole system, well, the core parts, CPU and GPU, I am kind of on the fence about. I will definitely wait a couple of months to see how the CPU stories play out. And on the GPU side of things, I would get one if I needed one, if mine was failing or if I was very dissatisfied with its performance. I would go for a GPU right now, but I would definitely not buy something very high-end. I would just get something to kind of carry me by the next 6-7 months until the next generation is here, and if I wanted high-end, then I would get it there. If you're not necessarily shopping for high-end, then you might as well get it now, because the cards that are out there are more than capable of running 1080 and 1440p at very acceptable refresh rates. For all the rest, SSD and RAM, definitely the time to buy. DDR5 is still a ways off. It's not going to be here next generation. It's probably going to be another 2 to 4 years, I would wager, before we see it in consumer desktops. So definitely time to buy RAM if you do need it or if you do want to expand it. Same thing for SSDs. The prices might go up. They are getting bigger and they're getting more attractive in terms of capacity and speeds and all that. But the prices might go up with the consoles entering the market later in the year. And PCIe Gen 4 is now starting to appear more often, but at the same time, I don't feel like it's worth the price premium. Plus, you really do need to have an X570 board with an AMD CPU in there. So there is that caveat. All the other stuff, coolers, power supplies, fans, cases, I don't see a particular reason to either wait or not wait. You get it if you need it, if you see something that you like. And yeah, there is not really a time window that I advise is the best to buy fans or not. So I hope this has been useful to you guys if you are thinking of maybe upgrading a part or just building a new PC and I'm not sure if it's the best time or not. Sadly, I don't have a whole lot of hardware at hand to show you guys. I will try to, sometime in the future, when some changes happen to the market, new releases, new announcements, etc. I'll try to do another round of price point builds, like builds that I would advise you to get at different budgets that you guys might have. No point doing it now because not much has changed since the last round of those that I did, but definitely in the plans for the future. So yeah, hope it has been helpful, hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Apologies once again for the background noise, I cannot help it. Hopefully next time I won't have to deal with that. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, drop a like, comment, let me know what you guys think is the wise thing to do if you are looking to upgrade your system in the near future. Should you wait, should you not wait, should you get some parts and not others and just, you know, sail by with what you have? Just let me know down in the comments. Check out our other videos and consider please subscribing to our channel. That's the best way that you can help for us to grow in the future and be able to do better videos with better quality, better sound file filtration, because yeah, as well as more hardware at hand to let me showcase stuff to you guys better. So hope this has been useful once again, and I hope I'll see you in the future. This has been Epic PC Guy, and have fun.